Hello, welcome back. Thank you so much for being here. Today we are going to be testing out the new Viseart Midsummer Lumiere Étendue eyeshadow palette. I am so excited for this. I always love a new Viseart eyeshadow palette. This is currently available on their website and at Beautylish. I did get mine from Beautylish just because the shipping to Canada is a little bit faster. But this is their newest palette. This has a 36-month shelf life and is made in the US as is standard. This does have a really nice soft touch matte packaging, and this is following the new Étendue packaging that they've been doing recently. So it just comes in this soft touch matte palette, and it also has this sort of raised design, which I think is a really nice touch. And then, like they've been doing for their last few Étendue palettes, this just flips open like so, and then you do have the paper covering here, which you can take out. And then you just have the palette. So their Étendue palettes used to have this sort of trifold, but now they just do it like this, and I actually have been enjoying this packaging. So this is the gorgeous color story. This is definitely very light, definitely very summer. Now this color story is so beautiful. This definitely speaks to me. I do love a good softer color story. There are some shades in here that are repeats from the original Midsummer palette, which I don't own, but Viseart did pop up a graphic on their website indicating which shades are repeats from that original Midsummer palette. So if you do have the mini, I will say there are enough repeat shades in here that you may want to skip out on this one, just because to me there are a lot of similarities, but I don't own that one, so these are all new to me. So let's get into taking a look at these swatches, and then we can create some different looks with this palette, and then I can show you some comparisons. Okay, going left to right, we have Eglantine, which is a cool toned light beige. Mirth is a soft mid-tone brown. Puck is a mid-tone nude rose brown. Dewdrop is a champagne nude rosé. Fairy is a light champagne pink. Orbs is a second skin nude topper. Titania is a muted purple gray. Changeling is a nude rose with a blue duochrome finish. Cupidon is a light pink brown. Perchance is a medium brown. Potion is a muted burgundy with gold pink reflectivity. And Hawthorn is a cool toned brown. So I am very excited about this one. Let me zoom you in and we can get to creating some different looks. So I think I'll create 3 different looks with this palette. That way I can do 2 and then I can pick one to wear for the rest of the day. But let's just start by going into this shade right here. This is just a really beautiful, very, very light pink. This would probably be a very common shade for me to start with, whether I put it in the crease or all over the lid. And from there, I think I want to go into this shade up here. I am headed in the direction of these deeper shades over here for this first look. Now, if you're new here, I love the Viseart palettes so much. I have always been a fan of their formula. I just love how buttery and blendable their mattes are. They just always perform incredibly well. And I do love their shimmers as well. I don't think their shimmer formula is one of the most intense shimmer formulas that you're ever going to get, but they are a beautiful wearable formula. Viseart is a pro brand, and I think that's important to remember. You can still get such a beautiful shine from these palettes. It's just not going to be the most intense, which for me is okay. Okay, now I think I want to go into this almost leaning purple shade here and just really dotting this one just on that outer corner. I was saying initially that I don't think you get a lot of depth with this palette, but I think you get more than I initially thought, because this shade is giving me quite a bit of depth as well. These mattes are also super buildable, so if you want to keep building them to get that depth, you definitely can. All right, next I want to go into this shade right here. I am going to pick it up on a finger because I think that's going to look the prettiest. And I just want to put this one all over the lid. This one is really pretty. This is one of those shades that it's definitely more of a shimmer, but it kind of has more of that wet effect. There's absolutely no chunkiness to this shade. It just has a really beautiful sheen to it. It's beautiful. That's really pretty. Just very simple. but pretty. I'm just going to add a little bit of that matte into that outer corner just to reinforce that a little bit. I think that's really pretty though. I do just want to grab this shade right here, which is kind of more of a pinky shade, but I just want to use this one for that inner corner. That's a really, really pretty inner corner shade. All right, so I really, really like how that came together. I was just debating on whether or not I wanted to go into this kind of sequin shade on the bottom, but I don't think I will. I think I'll leave that for the next look, but so far I think this looks really, really pretty. Let's get into the other side. So I want to start, I think I might start with that same pinky shade, but I do want to lean a little bit more into these pinkier tones for this look. So I'm going to do the same thing. I'm just going to blend this one into the crease. And I think I forgot to mention for all of these looks, I did just put down my Sigma eyeshadow base and set it with a little bit of powder. Next, going into this bottom corner shade. I love that we were able to get something a little bit more purple, a little bit more ethereal over here. I think on this eye, I want to kind of try to bring the look a little bit more pink. And then I think for the last look, I'm probably going to go in with more of those browns. And for me, that's just a perfect palette. Pink, purple, and brown. I am a happy girl. Okay, now I think I want to go into this shade down here. This is more of a sequin shade. These aren't my favorite types of shades, but Viseart actually tends to do them in a way that I like. When it comes to these shades, you really just have to pat them on in order to preserve any of the sparkle. But the second you try to blend, the sparkle does disappear. That is pretty standard. I'm just blending that into those outer shades a little bit. This shade really does just perform essentially like one of their mattes. So it is very easy to blend and work with everything else. And you can see once I applied that with the brush, we really lost most of the shimmer that is in that sequin shade. The only way to really preserve that is to pick it up on a finger and just sort of pat it on. And then you can see a little bit of that gold reflect, but it is still pretty faint. It is still pretty light. But that is really the only way that I've ever found to preserve the sparkle in these sequin shades. Now I want to go into this shade right here. This is supposed to be like a champagne rosé type of shimmer. It feels a little bit more dry to the touch than is usual for Viseart, but I do want to put this one all over the lid. This is the one I used for the inner corner on the other side. But I do love a good sort of champagne pink shade like this. This is a shade that's a beautiful highlighter shade on me, but I also just love a shade like this all over the eyes too, because I just think it's so pretty. It just brightens up the eye so well. And that looks so nice with those outer corner shades. And I think to actually mesh these two together really well, I want to go back into this shade right here. This was the lid shade for the other side. I'm going to pick up a little bit of that on a brush, and I want to just sort of pat the middle between where those two shades meet. That definitely helped to mesh those shades together much nicer. And then just grabbing a little bit more of that champagne pink for that inner corner as well, just because I love to do this. All right, so here are the first two looks. Over here, we definitely went in and tried to work with some of the more purple shades. Over here, we went a little bit more pink, a little bit more burgundy, but both looks were very, very quick and simple to create. They're both a lot of fun to play with. So let me quickly pop on some mascara, and then I'll come back to show you the finished first two looks, and then we can get into look number 3. All right, so mascara is on, and here are the finished first two looks, and I think they both look really nice. So I love how over here we have this sort of purple leaning, ethereal kind of look with that changeling shade that has sort of that wet effect to it. I think that looks really pretty, and I love that it is purple and kind of ethereal, but it's still light, wearable, and approachable, at least for me. And then over here, definitely this is a look I would create anytime because I do love this look. I think it looks really, really pretty, and I do love a good pink, and I really do love a good sort of champagne shimmer all over the lid. I just think that looks beautiful. So even though this eye is kind of leaning me into that more cool tone purple, I think that ethereal effect sort of Definitely keeps it in summer, and I think it still looks really, really pretty. I'm feeling very, very summery. I really like this. So let me pop off camera. I'll take these off and we can get into the third look. So for the final look, I think I want to go into these more brown shades. It's kind of the only place we haven't gone yet. So I'm going to start, I think, with this shade this time. And I was able to preserve the mascara, which I always try to do because it never looks worse than when you have to remove your mascara and then reapply. Something about mascara is just not forgiving. So just putting this one all through the crease. I did actually order the new YSL quad as well, the limited edition quad that is currently only available at Selfridges. I did order that, but it is scheduled to come in on Friday, and DHL is planning to go on strike on Friday, so I don't know when I will get that palette in, unfortunately for me. So I will be reviewing that at some point, I just don't know when. But for now, I am more than happy with this little Viseart palette. This is beautiful. Okay, from there, I want to go into this brown shade right here. I think this will make a nice shade to work on that outer corner. This is a really perfect mid-tone brown. It's giving me that perfect shape on that outer corner. Okay, I think I want to pick up this shade here on a finger. This just looked so beautiful. It looked beautiful in the swatch. It also feels a lot creamier than this shade here. But it's just a really, really beautiful golden shade. I think that looks beautiful in the lid. Getting a little bit of fallout with this shade. I haven't really gotten much fallout with the others, but this one is giving me a little bit. All right, just going back in with that shade I used for the outer corner, this brown shade down here. I just want to take a teeny tiny bit under the lash line. I don't do this very often at all, but I feel like this shade is just perfect for this. I'm actually going to dip back into this shade right here to just give a little something extra in that inner corner. To just finish everything up, I will go into this deeper shade down here just to line the lash line just a little bit. Nothing intense, not really going to wing it or anything, just to give a little extra definition. After that, I realized the only shade I haven't played with is this one right here. So I want to pick up just a little bit of that on a finger and maybe just tap it in the center, just to see. Okay, it didn't do much, but it is pretty. Just added a little bit of sparkle, but we already had quite a bit going on there. So let me zoom you out. I'll clean this up, and then I'll be back to show you the finished final look, and then we can get into some comparisons. All right, so here is the finished final look. I really love how it came together. It's just a perfect everyday look for me. I did just finish it up by touching up my mascara, and then I went in with the Sweet Beauty Satin Kohl liner on the lower lash line. I've been really, really liking this. This is in the shade Bright, so it's just the perfect nude, and it actually does stay put for a really long time. This is a really, really nice one. I've been really enjoying it. And then I went in on the bottom lashes with my Annabelle Skinny Mascara. I believe this is only available in Canada. This is a Canadian brand, but this is the perfect alternative to the MAC Extended Play Giga Black Mascara that everyone loves for their lower lashes. This is perfect. It has the same kind of teeny tiny wand. I actually just repurchased this because I wanted to start using this again. So let's get into these comparisons. I am really loving this color story so far. It is definitely a very me color story. These are all shades that I really thoroughly enjoy, but I wanted to compare it to some of the other palettes in my collection. So the first comparison I pulled is actually the Cerenus Étendu. This is one that came out, I believe, around holiday time, and this palette is beautiful. This is definitely a more grungy kind of palette, definitely much deeper than Midsummer, and it's intended to be, but I felt like there were some similarities in these more cool toned, slate gray, purple tone shades, a couple similar golds, some of the lighter shades look similar, and swatching them out, some of the lighter shades definitely were similar, but of course they weren't identical. They're definitely different enough to own both of them if you do. And then when I was also thinking about how light this palette is, because I do still think it's a very light palette, I was thinking about the Paris Love Letter, because this is probably one of the lightest palettes that they have. There's really not much depth to this one at all. And swatching them out, a lot of the lighter mattes, some of the shimmers were also quite similar. Of course, in the Paris Love Letter, you get that pop of green, that pop of purple. I don't think they have this one anymore though. I did also pull out the Lila Lumiere palette. This is a newer one. This is one of the limited edition palettes that was released for Black Friday and then recently relaunched this spring because it was so popular. And there is a little bit of overlap here. I do think the Lila Lumiere also is a quite light palette. It leans a little bit more cool tone than the Midsummer. There are some similarities between the lightest shades in the palette and the lightest shimmers. So popping up those swatches, you can definitely see some similarities, particularly in the two deeper shades in the palette, some of the gold shimmers. The purple shades ended up being much more different than I expected, but overall, the Lila Lumiere has a much more cool toned element to it than the Midsummer. And I also pulled out my top favorite Viseart palette. This is the Paris Reverie palette. Now this one is also very, very light. This is another palette that has pink and purple and a little bit of brown. So again, this is my current top favorite Viseart palette. I have definitely used and abused this one a lot, and it's just been my favorite since I think when it came out last spring. Holding these side by side, you can definitely see the similarities in the lightness of both of these palettes, but Paris Reverie definitely pulls into those purples and pinks a little bit more. The Paris Reverie definitely gives a lot more spring, whereas Midsummer is, I would say, more summery, but also, like their description on the website, definitely more dusk, twilight kind of vibes to it. And once again, popping up the swatches, you can see how the lighter shades in the two palettes and the lighter mattes, the lighter shimmers, they are pretty similar. We had a similarity in that brown, but I wasn't able to perfectly duplicate the palette. But the palette in my collection that actually got me the closest to this one is not from Viseart, it's from Natasha Denona, and that is the Bloom palette. Now I love the Bloom palette. I think this one's gorgeous. This is definitely a very warm, peachy leaning color story. Putting them side by side, the Midsummer looks a little bit more toned down, maybe a little grungier leaning. But popping up those swatches, you can see I actually found quite a lot of similarities between the two palettes. I was able to find some very similar shades in all of the lighter shades. I do think the Midsummer palette ends up running a little bit more cool toned than the Natasha Denona, which is quite clearly very, very warm. Natasha gives us a little bit more pigment, a little bit more punch, a little bit more reflect in those shimmers. Midsummer is definitely a much softer, almost more cool leaning version of that. You're definitely going to get a little bit more pink, a little bit more red from the Natasha, but you can create some similar looks if you already have the Bloom palette and you're wondering if you should purchase this one. You will be able to create something pretty similar. So overall, I think this palette is absolutely beautiful. I am so glad I have it. This is definitely a color story that I will get a ton of use out of. I love something like this. I love that it's not warm. I love that it's not too cool toned. I do love cool tones, but I love that it's not too cool leaning. It's just a really beautiful color story, and I love that even though we have these sort of purple leaning elements in here, we have this more ethereal shade. The looks still are very wearable, very approachable, and of course the formula in this palette did not miss whatsoever. The color story itself is not the most unique. I mean, when you compare Viseart, they're kind of one of those brands where a lot of their palettes can look similar. They do sometimes use a mix and match of old and new shades, and a lot of the color stories overall do end up looking similar. If you have a ton of Viseart palettes, maybe this is one you skip. If you have the original Midsummer palette, maybe this is one you skip. As for me, I don't have that one, and I'm really, really glad I have this one because I think it's so beautiful. I love their new packaging. I love this sort of raised design on here. I feel like it definitely makes this look a little bit more elevated and sophisticated. I feel like with their new packaging, you don't necessarily feel like you need to keep all of the boxes that they come in. I know I've kind of fallen into that trap before, but if you're someone who kind of hates the boxes, you don't have to. With this new packaging, I think it makes it a little easier. That's just a me thing. Overall, I think this palette's fantastic and the formula is phenomenal. I do have a code with Viseart. This video is not at all sponsored, but I do have a code with them. Whether you want to purchase this palette or anything else on their website, I'll pop that up on the screen for you. And I think you can save 10%. And if you do use it, I thank you so much. I do greatly appreciate it, but I overall just love the Viseart palettes because their formula is just so incredibly easy to work with, and I am loving this palette. I can't wait to keep using it, and I will get a lot of use out of her. Let me know all of your thoughts down below. Let me know if there's any questions maybe I didn't quite answer. Let me know if you're planning to pick this one up. It's actually still in stock at the time that I'm filming, which is pretty exciting. So just leave me all of your thoughts down below. I love hearing from you guys so much. If you're new here, I hope you'll consider subscribing before you go. I do upload new videos every single week. Thank you again so very much for watching, and I will see you in my next one.